For Southern Command itself, what are some kind of key operations or initiatives that you're allowed to share that is kind of like really critical towards the mission success and the focus?
Well, key operations and initiatives that we're doing often come in the form of exercises. And so when we do different exercises, there's a saying in the military: we fight as we train, and we train as we fight. So the more our exercises, we actually use systems and capabilities that we would use on a day-to-day basis, understand that capability, and then share it. For example, I talked about this open source capacity. We have something called enhanced domain awareness, and it is a platform which allows us to use various data sources and work with our partners to see a common operating picture and then share information on what is going on in the theater or with the problem set. And we do that sometimes in our exercises throughout the region. We additionally do collaborative engagements and training with our partner nations throughout the region in a very focused kind of way to make sure that we're meeting our partners where they're at.
For these partners themselves, there was, I want to give a comparative example where the NATO alliance itself has been really critical, and the U.S. is a critical stakeholder within that. And a big emphasis within the last few years, last decade, has been partners increasing their overall spending to kind of meet the U.S. in terms of its overall support there. Now, we don't necessarily have a similar organization per se, from what I know, and of course deferring to you there, and of course in Latin America, in Southern Command itself. In what ways or in what organizational structures are there in terms of kind of that engagement with stakeholder nations and their counterparts to Southern Command?
Well, we actually have several communities that we work with within Southern Command to allow us to focus, whether it's on the Caribbean, Central America, or South America, because each of those regions are very distinct within this theater. And we have operational and intelligence groups that collaborate, meet, and really dig in to some systemic problems that are communal, but possibly being seen at from different perspectives. So when you look at illegal fishing, and you might talk to Costa Rica, and they're caring more about what's coming into the ports from that, but it might be Ecuador has a different perspective versus the US. So these are forums that we have built out and then work at an individual level to be able to see what those problems are and how we can attack the problem from each side. Because um, in the United States, we want to think that, oh, that's South America. We don't have to worry about that. It's actually our hemisphere, and we have uh, part of the responsibility of dealing with this because when I show transnational criminal organizations and where drugs and some of their activity with illegal fishing and mining and the like, the arrows point to the consumer being in the United States. We have to understand if there's a demand signal that we have part of that responsibility. And so looking at the whole problem set and then coordinating as a holistic body with our partner nations is absolutely critical. So we have not only defined these engagements and conferences and meetings and the like, but as I articulated earlier, then we tie those into exercises and engagements throughout the region to practice. Because the reality is, until you've practiced and done what one might call your sets and reps, you don't have the muscle memory on how to work with partner nations. And what we do have a lot of is a willingness to work with our partner nations throughout Latin America. To me, the greatness is the fact that when I do most of my engagements, I travel about 3 weeks of every month. And
Hmm.
I do most of my engagements in either Portuguese or Spanish. That's important. And so now I have individuals on my team that don't speak Spanish, and that's fine. But I will tell you that as we work with our partner nations and you build trust, you really have to meet people where they're at, and you have to be able to have good, candid conversations. You don't need to come in like you're pointing a finger. The Japanese have a great saying that when you're pointing a finger at somebody, think about how many are pointing back at you. Uh,
Hmm.
and I try and take that dose of medicine regularly of understanding of I've got to start with me, and what our partner nations want more than anything is to be heard and to have a honest, candid conversation where we're not trying to keep information from them.